Welcome to my podcast. I wanted to talk today about acquaintances and friendships or friends because they can be really difficult to distinguish between which is which. When I was young, everyone was my friend. That's how I saw it. Like if I met someone, oh, you're my friend, you're my friend, you're my friend. And I didn't have any understanding, I don't think, of that a person who's your friend is someone that you spend a lot of time with and you're very close with, you share a lot of your personal life with. Acquaintance is more someone you meet and you just talk about what I call normal stuff, and then you don't really share what's happening in your partnership or what's really happening at work, or you've been really worried about this. You don't share those things so much with the acquaintance. It's really important for you to work out who's who. And the reason is because if you read someone as a friend and they are actually an acquaintance, you're going to have an expectation of that relationship that's unrealistic. If your next door neighbour is your acquaintance and you say hello and whatever, remember they're not actually your friend. They're not someone you've chosen to share your inner sanctum, your inner life with. And that's probably a really good way of distinguishing it, that with a friend you will share your inner self, with an acquaintance you share your outer self. And either relationship can work, and actually one can become the other and the other can be the reverse. The other way of looking at it too is that from their perception, from where they're standing, do they see you as a friend or an acquaintance? Because you will see it a certain way, but they will see it a certain way back. And I think for me, I thought people were my friend, but for them I was the acquaintance. So I had like an unrealistic expectation or understanding what the relationship was actually all about. After I realised that, I started to look at my connections with people in terms of who is actually a friend and over here in the friend lot, and who is an acquaintance. Someone who I'll just talk about the weather and yes, we bought the new car and what we did last week, but it wasn't my inner world. And that really helped me to separate it, and it also helped me crossing over the line, because if someone only wants to be an acquaintance with you and you're trying to be a friend with them, you will actually get yourself in the situation you might actually feel a little rejected by them because they don't want to be as close or ring as often. But once you realise it's just an acquaintance relationship, it's easier. And that works the other way around too. If you're with somebody and that person sees you as an acquaintance, that's all they're going to do, just a small talk. But they're not going to want to share that part of their life with you. I know this sounds really simple, but I think it's really, really big in losing a friend. Because sometimes some of the people you're losing actually aren't your friend. They were your acquaintance. And that's going to actually make it easier for you in the loss. You might have just seen them as a friend, but they only saw you as an acquaintance. And to them, you're just an acquaintance. So the loss will change knowing which is which. It took me a while with some people. I thought we were friends, and then they weren't behaving like a friend in my idea of what a friend was. And I got disappointed, and I got like confused. And then I realised they just saw me as an acquaintance, and it's okay, because for them I was just an acquaintance. That's why there were long stretches in between when we talked, and it was always me suggesting we go out, etc., etc. So once I realised that, I'm like, oh, okay, you're just an acquaintance. I heard of another word, it's called a frequaintance, which is unusual, which means you are friends with someone and you'll end up knowing their sister or their friend at work, and they become like a friend acquaintance to you, but you're not actually their friend. And you can be misled by that, just assuming that because my friend's Kerry and she's got one of her friends is called Jodie, that now Jodie's my friend too, when in fact Jodie's just your acquaintance, and it's only through your friendship, initial friendship, that you know this person and they remain as an acquaintance. Friends do things together. They give up time to be with each other. There's a strong emotional bond. They usually love you, like you a lot. You give up stuff to do things for them. You offer to be there when they're going through crisis. You will be supportive. You often give them gifts. You often say nice things to them. And it's closer. You share the real stuff. So if they're going through trouble in a relationship, you would talk about it with them. If you're having trouble at work, you can talk about it. Or if you're having family things, you talk about it. It has a depth to it. I think the acquaintance is like the top of the ocean, and the friendship is like below. It's the water underneath. That's where the friendship sits, underneath. The acquaintance is nice to have in life, and I think I've always seen friendship and acquaintances. You have your inner circle, and then there's a ring there, and then the next circle, and the next circle. And as you go further out, it's becoming now more the acquaintances. The people that the coffee shop, and you get to know a person a lot, and you talk to them how you're going, and they serve you, but they are actually your acquaintance. The acquaintance can go into friendship. I don't know how well friendship goes into an acquaintance. To me, that doesn't always work as well. If you are friend to friend, it works. If you are acquaintance to acquaintance, it works. If you are friend and acquaintance, it doesn't work so well. Now, that can be your misunderstanding about it, or it can be on their side. It can be the way they see it as well. I'm sure you've had people who've wanted to be friends with you more than you wanted. You kept them a little bit at distance, with whatever the reason was. Or they were coming in, because they want to be friends with you, but you just want to like be more casual, be acquaintances. And it would have been on the reverse for you as well. I feel that you can start as acquaintances and become friends. You can also be friends, and then it can drift. And your relationship becomes more of an acquaintance one, but usually it's not as comfortable once it gets into that place, unless it's both of you really want that. I feel it's a bit of a loss personally, but that's sometimes how it works. And it can work because of distance. You can move away, they can move away, maybe their lifestyle changes. You're single and still can go out. They're studying, they can't go out, they've got children. So these can change how the relationship is. But the most important thing about this podcast today is to recognise who's who, and then you make better judgment. And not be like I was, and I just put them all in the friend basket. It was interesting. It was my husband who actually said to me soon after we married, and he's like, you see everybody as a friend. And I think that a lot of these people are actually just acquaintances, Wendy. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I went and had a look at it, and he was right. It was just the way I operated, because I was very equal. So if I did something for a friendship, I would also do it for an acquaintance. If they needed help, I would also help them. And I was happy to do it because it came under that same umbrella of the friend. However, once I started to see the two types of relationship, I think I handled them better. I didn't also get hurt, and I didn't have disappointment because I had much lower expectation of the acquaintance relationship. It takes you a while sometimes to work out which is which, so you be patient with yourself. And some people come in very fast, want to be friends, and then you find they sort of slipping away, and you're like, what's going on? And that's because they've worked out they just want to be acquaintance now. And that can be what's happening in their life. It can be that they've noticed that you're quite different to one another. You might not have similar interests, etc. Those things can actually change it. Have a look at your group of friends. I would get a little list and write friends, acquaintances, and then in the middle you have I haven't quite worked it out yet, and you'll have some people in that list that they're fluctuate between being friends and then acquaintances. But mostly those ones are really acquaintances. They just come in for something for a while and then they're gone again. It'll make it clearer for you, that's all. And when you start losing people, you'll have an understanding of that. I wrote to someone because I realised that I'd misread it. It was quite a long relationship we'd had, but I'd misread it. And I was very clear and said, I'm sorry, I read this friendship as a friendship, and I see you see it as an acquaintance. And that was me, that I just misunderstood it. And the relationship basically dissolved. But it was good for me because in a way it made me work out why I was keep doing things and nothing was coming back, because they just saw it as an acquaintance. And that's okay. But it was my fault really in a way, because I just looked through my little friendship lens and I just put them in that group. You'll find your life's easier once you work this out. Okay, have a special week. I hope you have lots of friends around. But it's still good to have acquaintances too. It's nice just to talk about the weather or something. Okay, I'll talk to you soon and sending you lots of love.